Hello, everyone. Welcome to Drumfills Café. My name is Denis, and welcome to another episode of this 9th season. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Before we begin, as usual, I will invite you to go check out the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok pages of Drumfills Café to do a like and, of course, a subscription to those pages. And, of course, if you haven't done it yet, I will invite you to go check out drumfillscafe.com, the website, to figure out, basically, to see what happened in the past seasons and what's going on with this 9th season. So thanks so much. So let's talk drums. We all love drums. And of course, tonight I have a special guest. I have someone who makes drums. So my guest tonight is the owner and creator of the very unique and colorful drums from UDRUM, or the Underground Drum Company, located in Burlington, Ontario. Some of the drummers who have used his drums from such bands as Blue Rodeo, Tom Cochran, Kim Mitchell, Alexis on Fire, Silverstein, and the YouTube sensation Cobus. And if that wasn't enough, he's also a drummer. He plays, and he continues to drum and played over 140 shows just last year. Very cool. I'm slightly jealous, actually. Anyways, for all of that, let's talk about drums and playing. Let's please welcome Mr. Paul Dickinson. Hello, Paul.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk drums today, like to nerd out on drums.
Go on.
So you're at your web shop, your shop today, I imagine. Of course, you're in Burlington.
Yeah, just sitting in the workshop here, just surrounding myself with the vibe, of drums and drumming. So yeah, this is where I like to be.
I was about to say, what does it feel like to wake up, have a little coffee, and go, I'm going to make some drums today?
Actually, it feels really good. It's like having a workshop on the property allows me to, sometimes I come out here at 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. If you feel inspired to do something, work on something, if you have an idea, I just come out here and spend a few hours coming up with some of the creations. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Very cool. Before we go into the nitty gritty, I'm always curious, what made you go down the path of drums, music, all that stuff? Was it a concert? Was it family? What was it for you? I'm curious.
Yeah, funny story. I was actually just with my dad yesterday, delivering a drum set up to Sudbury, Ontario. So we had lots of time to talk, and we got on the subject of, where did my interest come from for drums? And I reminded them when I was about 5 or 6 that they had hired a clown for my birthday party, and the clown brought a drum set for all the kids to play on. And I think that was probably my first introduction to the instrument. But looking back, I can, anytime I would see a band on TV, you're just automatically attracted to what the drummer's doing. Where's that other drum coming from? Not knowing he was pushing, a bass drum pedal behind that gigantic bass drum. So the instrument always intrigued me, I think, just way back, seeing bands play and you listen to music and that's what you focus on, So
you just had natural attraction to the sound and the instrument, basically.
Yeah. And it's funny because my friends and I always joke when I'm playing, I'll have a singer turn around and go, "Hey, what's the next line?" And I'll go, "I don't know. I don't focus. I don't know any lyrics to any songs. My focus, and maybe it's this way for a lot of drummers, you hear your instrument. That's what you focus on. Mm-mm. How does it interact with the rest of the band and the song, right? So it's something that always pulls my attention, Yeah.
Very nice. When did you start playing? Was it high school? Did you meet some buddies? When did you start playing drums?
So I started back in grade 9, 1982. I think it was 15. I was over at a friend's house, and he was taking lessons. And I said, "Well, show me what you've learned." And he showed me, and I'm thinking, "Gee, I can already play that." And being kind of a shy person back then, I never thought about taking lessons myself until I saw what he was learning and thinking, yeah, I can already do that. Maybe it gave me the confidence to go in and start taking lessons.
Okay.
So, so 1982, 14 or 15, I think.
Yeah, like most of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it the metal days or was it some pop stuff? I'm curious.
You know what? First attracted to like the rock stuff, the metal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The first band I was in when I was 16, we went on the road. Yeah, it was during the whole hair metal days. And, the band I was in at the time was a band called Prowler.
Okay.
And our lead singer was an artist, so we had this whole direction of how the band was going to look and, for the photographs, for the stage. So, of course, at that time we're buying leopard skin this and tiger skin that and, ripped clothes and, that was kind of like what was happening at the time. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm a kid from those years. I started drumming to those albums, to the Poisons and Motley Crue and Warrant and all that stuff. I started on that, and it actually is a good school because the drumming is quite simple, and it's quite effective actually. And I mean, we kid today is like, oh man, hair metal, but honestly, I mean, it was good stuff. I think it was good stuff personally, and it was it was an easy stuff to get to in order to start learning the basics. I think, anyways.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we always talk about Phil Rudd in AC/DC. He was kind of ahead of his time, just, serving the song. And, it took me a long time. I remember going to school for music, for jazz, and entering the program with a very simple approach to playing the instrument. And I think a lot of that came from what you're first attracted to musically, and a lot of it is simple playing, just the foundation for the tune, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it took me a long time to start opening up and getting away from that, just because, those were the influences for the day, right? So, yeah.
Cool. And when did it become from playing and, well, you're still playing at this point, but when did, I'm going to start making a drum? When did that transition sort of start happening?
I always loved just tinkering with drums. Like that's where it started.
Okay. Taking
them apart. Again, there was no rhyme or reason why I did it other than just out of pure interest. So I think a lot of guys that build drums were players first and fascinated with, what do these fixtures on the outside do? What's the wood, the finish, that, as you start taking them apart, you get to the inner workings of a drum. And, I think that interest kind of spawned into, I think I'm going to make my own drum set.
Okay.
And, I built my first drum set. And, I remember going out to gigs and knowing in my mind I wanted to build something special that wasn't really in the market for the day. And, remember having a guy come up and say, man, where'd you get that drum set from? I go, oh, well, I built it. Oh, you build drum sets? I was like, yeah. Hand him my card. And that's kit number 2 and then 3 and then 4, But I think the building part of it was just having such an affinity for the instrument and just being that interested in playing them, but also how they work. And, we're constantly chasing that sound, that tone thing, different heads and dampening and tunings. Like, that's the thing is there's so many parameters to the instrument that we're satisfied for a while. And then somebody introduces something to you and then you start chasing that whole thing. And it's a constant, like if you love the instrument, you're constantly chasing a new sound, a new tone, and a new inspiration, if you will.
So, something new, basically, because you're sort of like, well, maybe I could go here or whatever. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
And you see that in the market. There's always a new sound, a new dampening device, a new whatever that's come on the market that or a new drum company that has a slightly different take on the instrument and proves himself as, wow, this is something a little different. And,
And was it because you couldn't find whatever you were looking for that you built them back in the day? Is it like you had this thing and you couldn't find this sort of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, when I built that first drum set, I wanted to build something different that was happening. Like, honestly, my first attraction, if you can think back to like 82, 83, was the Tama brochures, with Billy Cobham.
Billy Cobham, yeah, for sure.
Simon Phillips, the whole Art Star. Yeah, so those, beautiful finishes that were happening, in the drum market at the time. But then there was, something that happened early 2000s, I guess, Orange County, the percussion, they really brought the boutique drum building to the forefront. And I saw a lot of different ideas, a lot of different wraps and things you could do and stripes. And, that really intrigued me. So it kind of got me away from the traditional wood finishes and maybe just a traditional wraps to integrating those two things, inlays into the finishes. And so, yeah, I think the first drum kit I built, I wanted to have something different. So it wasn't that I couldn't find it, but I think my eyes were open to, moving away from the traditional finishes.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Just a quick anecdote. I have an album from Billy Cobham from '86 called Power Play. It's one of my favorite albums, and the sound from that Tama he got on that recording is just. Of course,
thunder.
It's like thunder. And of course, he's Billy Cobham. He hits them, properly.
Yeah.
But I think I know what you're saying. Is you wanted to get away probably from that sound. I guess is what you're saying. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Or even the look. I don't know. It was an interesting time because I think Orange County was really the company that kind of turned things upside down and gave drummers that the thought of having an individual a look that nobody else had. So that was I think that's where my idea for the first drum kit is. I'm going to move away and get something totally different that where people are going to come up, or drummers are going to come up and say, "Where'd you get that kit?" And here I am 30 years later, so that obviously worked to a certain degree.
I'm curious. Do you still have the kit? Do you still have it with you?
I do. I did. It's still within my friendship pool. I ended up selling it to the singer from my band.
Okay.
She was looking for a kit for her kind of jam spot, and I thought, well, I've got this kit sitting here, and we have a little bit of history. She used to, oddly enough, 10 years after I'd first met her, I used to deliver my drum kits to the post office, and she was the one shipping the drums off. And she thought, how cool is this that there's a drum company in my hometown making drums and shipping them off. So I thought, well, it's kind of fitting that, here's the first drum kit.
Here's the first drum. Very nice.
And I know if I ever want it back, or if I want to use it for something, it's close enough. So
cool.
It's still within reach.
Well, let's talk about the drum company called UDRUM, or Underground Drum Company. When did you say, okay, I'm making drums, now let's make a company? When did it become more and more in demand? Is that why you did the company?
Well, I think the company came first, and it really spawned out of the fact that, so I was playing in a band, traveling, married at the time, had a child on the way, just bought a house. And I thought, I can't be away from home. I really should probably, focus on being home more and, focus on the family and being here. So that's really where the drum business started. Is I ended up getting, a real job from day one, absolutely hating it, and thinking to myself, well, okay, if I want to be home, I want to stay in the business, what can I do here? I love drums. So that's where the idea came. So I had about 9 months to a year at this other job, just daily thinking about ideas of how I could do this and build the company up enough where I can make enough money doing that to be home and still play and still gig and do all that. So, so I think, I started the business, building the business. A lot of it was just repairs, buying and selling.
Right. Okay.
I did a lot of buying and selling, still do. And then, again, just through the repairs, building my first kit, having business cards, going out to gigs. And of course, when you're playing, drummers always come up. They want to talk drums.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right.
we didn't make a show just for that.
Yeah. But the drum kit became, again, in my mind, I wanted to make it a focal point, something different that kind of made drummers come up and ask about it. And then I could hand my card, again, you build the first kit, then kit number 2 and 3, and you go, yeah, I guess I'm a drum builder, registered the company and then just slowly built it up through buying and selling, building a kit here and there into, my first shop and then, as you go, you're learning, how does a music store survive? How do you create enough money to pay yourself and still pay employees? And, the one thing I found out that was kind of the foundation for a lot of music stores or drum stores was the student base. You need a student base because that's your cash flow to do other things like custom build, bring in inventory. So I think at one point I had 150 students. I think 100 of them were drum students in a small little town.
Okay, wow, kind of like it. Yeah. So would they come from the Toronto area, the big Toronto, or was
mostly local?
Local, really? Wow.
Yeah, but it was a small little town. So, and I think just building the brand along with the store kind of went hand in hand. So, and I think that's why I did a lot of the endorsements. Again, was like any company will endorse somebody to get your product out there and build the name. And I would say it just kind of built validity into the company, where people go, well, my favorite drummer is playing these drums. That's where I want to take lessons.
Yeah, for sure.
And, so, excuse me, it all worked kind of hand in hand. So it was a slow build, but mostly, it just started out of wanting to be home, for the family. But still, I always played 100 to 150 gigs a year. So, and in the music business, it's, it's taking a piece of this and a piece of that and a piece of that, and you somehow carve out a living in the music business. So it was rentals, it was, teching, it was playing, it was repairs, it was custom building. All these things allowed me to kind of build the business up and again, not having to be away from the family. So.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I totally understand that part of, having a little family and everything. So yeah, for sure. It's interesting how creativity still is available to us when we are in certain situation, which is what you had, that sort of situation, and you went towards something that stays creative. And I think that's musicians need to be creative. So
but it's a really good point, because it was another thing I talked to my dad about yesterday on a long drive. And I just couldn't go in and get paid by the hour. I just couldn't do it, because even in business, you need that creative element, whether it's creating music or, like, I don't know how many hours I've sat up at night just thinking, okay, what can I do? What's the next step? And you write things out and you expand the business model. Like that's the creative element too. So
for sure. 100%. I totally understand. Cool. Well, let's dig into the company and the stuff you're doing. So yeah, you said you had stores, like you say, you had over a lot of drums. Is the store still? You closed down the store as well. Now you're just doing the drumming, the drum making. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of it changed with the internet. Over the years, I had stores for 20 years. A lot of fun, but a lot of overhead, a lot of expense before you take anything home. And these are just some of the things you learn as you go, because it's like how much time are you putting in? Like, funny thing is, my dad is my accountant, so he always go, what are you doing here? You're spending too much time doing this and not enough time on that. And he would help me just kind of, get the business, going down a path that was profitable, but I still needed that creative element. Like that's the tough thing with being creative is, we want to just do our music. We want to do our drumming. I want to create drums, and, like that's, building drums, creating drums has always been kind of the original music element for drum building, if you will. Like, it was a creative part, like I always thought, playing in cover bands allowed me to make money doing what I love to do. But, there's not a lot of creativity in the cover band.
No, for sure.
Element.
No.
So, my dad would always go, what do you do with this custom drum thing? And, it's tough to make money, and you're putting a lot of time and energy. And I always paralleled it with going into the studio and how much time you do in pre-production, and you hope at the end that people are going to like your music and buy it, and you slowly build it up. And so you kind of have these parallels all along, because I've always been a musician and recording and writing songs with bands, and but also doing cover band stuff and going. So on the musical side, it was your passion is really creating music. And that's what it was for me in the drum business. Was I could go out and do retail and lessons, and was appreciating the business, of course, but the creative part was always building, and what's a new sound I could come up with, or a new look, or so.
But what you're saying basically is that that the drum shop, because of the internet now, people can just go online and say, I want this one, I want that one. So right. You don't necessarily need a physical shop per se for your company to work, basically.
Right. Yeah.
I'm curious. I had one of those questions because I did go on the website, and we're going to pick and I have a couple of drums that I want to talk about because they're very, very unique, very interesting to me. When we want to check out one of your drums, is it a thing where we can actually go somewhere and test them out, or is it a thing that I'll pick that one and then there's a test drive at home, or how's it work for you when someone want to purchase a drum from you?
Yeah, so that's the tough part is, I had the drums for the longest time in Long and McQuaid throughout Canada. I think over the years, I love kind of the personal element where, people call me and we talk, we discuss it, we do some online, I'll send pictures. It is tough doing it that way because, there's no, there's no better way to really get a feel for a drum than actually experience it firsthand. When I had the store, it was easy because people would come to the shop. We built a soundproof booth with a drum kit. You could take whatever you wanted off the shelf. Yeah, go in the room, try it out, to your heart's content, to make sure it's something that you really like. So definitely being more online has its challenges. People do come here. Like there's a lot of people that I will set up an appointment and they come to my place, come in the workshop, we do a little bit of playing. I'm in I am working on a drum room right now, just trying to, set up an environment where people can hear the drums. I can explain the drums and just kind of walk them through what it does, show the drum in different, tunings and scenarios, maybe with music.
Mm.
with the hopes of trying to, help people make a decision on what they would want to buy.
Okay.
But again, there's no substitute for being able to come into the shop and try it. So, has its challenge being online.
Yeah, but at least people can come to your shop and try it out, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's dig in. I of course, the most popular one that you seem to have is the Cherry Bomb snare drum.
Yeah.
Which I think is sold all over the world. It's been there's a review of it. I was checking it out by Cobus, who's with DW now, but he says he still loves his Cherry Bomb. He still has it and still uses it. Talk to me about that drum. What's the inspiration? How is it made? Talk to me a bit about that drum.
I think that drum came out of a lot of the sessions I was teching. Everybody was looking for, like, again, we started playing in the 80s, and that sound of that big kathunky snare drum, that backbeat, with the wallet sitting on top of it, it just had all this body. And I think that drum was born out of that, just trying to find something that was full body, that just wasn't a one-trick pony, that would work in lots of different scenarios. And I remember sending one to Drum Magazine for a product review, and the guy was very gracious. He did a 2-page article on it, and he said I took it, because it's all red, of course, and it's got a specific look to it.
It pops.
He said I took it to a jazz gig, I took it to a country gig, I took it to a rock gig. He said it worked in all those scenarios. So that made me very happy, because that was the goal, was just to create a drum that just had lots of body to it, that you could depend on for sessions and playing. And, again, some of my favorite drums are the Black Beauty, Superphonics. They just have a certain tone that is just, it works in so many different scenarios. So that's what that drum was really made to do.
And is it wood? Is it aluminum? Talk to me a bit about the construction of that drum.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the dimensions are 6.75 deep by 14. The first one was actually 6 by 14. I was trying to get a drum that kind of made the guys that love a 5 by 14 happy, and the guys that might like an 8 or a 7-inch deep. I was trying to find one drum that kind of fit the bill for guys that loved all those different sizes. It's 3 millimeter thick aluminum.
Okay.
So the red color is actually, a lot of people think it's wood, because it's got that kind of brushed, grainy look to it. But it is 3 millimeter aluminum. It's been anodized.
Okay.
So it gives it that blood red look.
Okay. And is it that what's behind you right now, or is that okay? If you want, I don't know if you want to show it just a bit for people who don't know.
Yeah. So this is, I call this one the 2.0. And the only difference is the first one had die-cast hoops, 42 strand wires, and a trick throw-off. And I stopped making them back in 2015. And a lot of it was just not being able to get different processes done correctly, and really set me back in just the amount of time I was putting into the drum.
Okay.
So yeah, I stopped making them, and then would always get so many requests over the years for the drum. And then I think maybe 3 years ago, I just decided to bring it back.
Okay. But
I wanted to then make another change. So the first one was 6 by 14 with die cast. The second one was 6.75 by 14 with die cast tubes, trick throw off. This one I just wanted to change. It's still the same dimension, same thickness, but I want to lighten it up with the triple flange tubes, and then the indie throw off, which there's very little of the throw off touching the shell.
Okay.
So it kind of opens the drum up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I've sold a whole bunch of those. So seems to be working. But again, it's trying to make everybody happy because I still have drummers going, how much is it for the original one with the die cast hoops and the trick throw off? And you make these changes, again, trying to be creative and trying to get to the next level of how could we make this drum sound, and you take it in the studio. Oh wow, this works great, and you're excited about it, and then you put it back out there, and guys are like, yeah, that's really great, but what about
the original one?
What about the original one? Yeah. So I'm talking to somebody in Switzerland right now because I also have a natural version of that. I don't know if you saw that picture. So
I'm not sure. No, maybe meaning that. Oh yes, in the sense that it's not red. Yes, I think I saw that. Yes, yes.
So again, trying to, like, a lot of drummers like the sound, but red might not be your color. You're out at a jazz gig and you got this, bright red drum on the, behind your kit.
Yeah.
So I came out with, keeping the sound, but with chrome hardware in a natural aluminum shell.
Right.
So again, I was just saying, a guy contacted me from Switzerland a couple of days ago, again, wanting the, because again, I've changed it to triple flange hoops and the indie throw off. This guy wants the natural series with the die cast hoops, with the trick throw off, and I'll do it, But again, it's funny how everybody is so specific about what they like and what they don't like. So it's go ahead, please.
And that's something you do. You do custom stuff for clients. Basically, it's not just here's the drum and if you don't want it this way, that's it, sort of thing. You do customize drums.
Yeah, to a certain degree. Over the years, I've made a couple of, like, for instance, the Cherry Bomb. Somebody wanted a 9x14.
Whoa!
And right. So again, you're always torn because you want the business. And I built the drum and a couple of other ones. I built a 13 for somebody. But then what I found is it created a lot of confusion, because when you came out with a line where people got to know the specs, because we have a card with all the specs hanging off the drum, and then people would, again, with the internet, you've got people from all over. I thought you only built this drum, and I just saw a guy, playing it, and I reached out to him, and he says it's a 6.75 by 13 with triple flange hoops, and again, you open this door to
that this is what I want, but not this one, and
right. Yeah. But it also confused a lot of people, right? Because like the Black Beauty came with certain specs, and
right,
Superphonic or whatever drum, you come to know what the specs are, and then you start changing them up. And again, it just creates.
Oh yeah. It's like the people that go on forums and say, I want the Superphonic from this year to that year with this badge and not this throw off, and and you're like, oh my god, okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm starting to do. So that's why I try not to do that too much, but I will. For someone that wants die cast hoops, they could go do that themselves.
Right.
Take the triple flange hoops off. So again, I'll do something like that. But if they I guess if they want to get into a specific shell size, I might not do that. Again, just over the years, so many questions just swirling around. Why does this guy have this? And I thought you only did this, and you said So again, trying to keep the masses happy. So
cool. What's the next one next to the Cherry Bomb? I'm curious, since you have them behind you.
Which one? This one here?
Yep.
Okay, so this is I've teamed up with a guy who makes steam bent shells. I've made a lot of steam bent shells over the years, but this guy I found on the internet, he makes just unbelievable true steam bent shells, this is a 1/4-inch plank of black walnut, steam bent in the shape with the reinforcement rings. And it just sounds beautiful. Just a simple finish. I think it's just got a hemp oil finish on it.
You just lift it a bit. I can barely. There you go. Yes. Show the drum stuff.
There we go. Yes. There it is.
Very nice. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
And okay, so do you? So there's certain things you don't make per se. So a bench shell, for instance, is not something you create. You get it from somebody else, for instance.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some things I've felt like you can get into all sorts of different techniques, and what I found is you just leave certain things up to people that do it really well.
I see. Yeah.
Because again, sometimes you can just spend too much time focused on that. And again, with my dad being my accountant, he's always talking about how much time are you going to put into something. It's not that you don't want to do it, but you realize it's just something I've learned over 30 years. Is that guy makes steam bench shells and he does a hell of a job. It's like I'm going to leave that part up to him. I will bring it in and put the finish, map it all out, cut the bearing edges and the snare beds I like that are going to work with that particular shell. That's what I've learned to do. How's that going to interact with the drum head and snare wires and all those things combined.
Yeah, you're still, even though you don't do the shell, you're still creating something, from various parts. And and I think is it that one that you were also tinted, that you added the color? I think, I'm not sure.
On the wood shell. Yeah. So that is just a hemp oil.
Okay.
So that's I wanted to do something really simple for that drum because the black walnut was just beautiful on its own. Of course, when you add the oil, it seals it in, but it brings up this beautiful dark tone. If you saw the kind of before and after, you'd be like two different beasts.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. And quickly, like the physics of the drums, what's the physicality of walnut versus a cherry wood, or how much of that affects the sound of a drum in your mind?
Yeah. Well, definitely, I think it just comes down to the hardness, in the material that you're making the drum out of. I've always said, just how much is it going to reflect the sound? So they have, they've got this Janka scale, I think, for wood, and that just tests the hardness of the wood. I always think back to one of the best sounding drum kits I ever worked on was an old set of Stewarts.
Really?
Yeah, and it had this plywood thin shell with reinforcement rings, where you could actually flex the shell. It was that thin. And somebody had been given that drum set, and they brought it into me, and they wanted me to true up the edges and recut the edges, which I did. And when I put the heads back on it and tuned it back up, I went, oh my gosh, why does this drum kit sound so great? And it was, just the wood was so forgiving. It was, what we call in the industry almost like a mush wood.
Okay.
And again, so in that case, that mahogany was very porous, very soft, and it really lent itself to a warm, round tone. So yeah, just really forgiving. So you could tune it any way you want. It's still this beautiful tone.
Yeah. And say something like walnut, which is behind you, would be, I imagine, something much, much denser, much stronger.
Right. So to me, it would reflect a little bit more, a little bit more articulate, a little bit cleaner. So yeah, all those things, all those different materials, from aluminum to brass to copper to mahogany to babinga, all those things are just, to me, just the way it reflects the sound. Is it absorbing some of the sound? Is it just full on? If I build a 20 or 30 ply shell where, the shell wall is 3/4 thick,
right?
That's just meant to be a gunshot. It's meant to cut through, it's kind of like a one-trick pony. It's meant to just cut through the mix, right? 412 cabinets are, big, bass stacks.
Right.
So yeah, I think a lot of the different woods is just the way it just reflects the sound. So.
Mm-hmm. And quickly for the hoops, I mean, there's a discussion out there, but the die-cast stuff will make it more focused, and the triple flange will be more sort of a open sound. Is that what you would say as well? Yep.
Yeah, and again, it's just the material, the density of the material. Is it going to allow, like I always use the guitar as kind of a parallel, because you use thick strings or thin strings. They're all going to have a sound, but it's, the denser something is going to be, the more focused that tone is going to be. It's not going to ring out, where, die-cast hoops are heavy, they're dense. So it's going to, to me, it's going to choke the drum down a little bit. It's not going to let the head reverberate as much. I think that's why, a lot of people love Gretsch drums for recording. They endorsed a certain company, but in the studio they would be playing Gretsch drums, because they just had a certain recipe, from the 6-ply shell to the dense die-cast hoop, and obviously the die-cast hoop creates a sound that's very up and down. And to me, the visual is it lends itself directing the tone or the sound into the mic a little bit better, as opposed to something that's more flexible, like triple flanged, or
sort
even,
of
the sound spills over and expands out this way, where something that's more focused is up and down. That's the way I see it, and the way I hear it, and I think that's, again, why Gretsch toms especially were highly coveted for recording.
They seem to work for Mr. Phil Collins, anyways. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. He found this down, right? Open heads with the die-cast, hoops, and the maple shells. So yeah.
Cool. There's another another snare you built, and it's a different material, which is acrylic. And you built one that's called the Ambrosia Maple Clear Acrylic Hybrid Snare, which really got my attention. Properties of acrylic, and why mix it with a ring of maple? I'm curious.
Yeah. I think a lot of those drums started out as more of a visual drum. You're on stage, you can't quite figure out what you're looking at, because you don't see part of the drum and you see some of the drum. It ended up sounding great for, like, I guess on paper you look at something like different parts of a shell being, rabbited and glued together. Shouldn't work, shouldn't sound good. But again, you take the reflection of, say, maple or whatever wood you're using, plus, the cleanness of acrylic, and the sounds moving through that chamber. And I know there's a few guys, some of their favorite snare drums are the hybrid snare drums.
Okay.
You see that with metal. Some companies are putting metal and wood together, and again, it's just, we're all just chasing a visual and a tone. You just don't know what it's going to do until you've put the drum together. There's no schematics where you go, oh, this is going to sound like this and this is going to do that. So I think it started out as a visual thing, but they do sound good.
I would be very curious to hear that one. Because it's something you don't see every day. That sort of mix of basically the wood hoop in the middle and the acrylic on the other sides. Very cool. And acrylic, is it a focus sound? Is it a open sound? I think acrylic is really focused, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, acrylic is funny to me. It's
okay.
I hear it like in person. I think because of the interior being so smooth, it allows, the sound to travel through it. But then the material is fairly soft, so it kind of does something to that sound. To me, they're fairly loud. I've always cut my bearing edges on acrylic a little differently than, say, a company like Ludwig would. They cut it very sharp. I actually still do a round over on the outside to capture the curvature of the head, so that gives you a higher tuning range. But then I wet sand and polish all my edges. So any of the acrylics that I make, they sound like really good wood drums,
I see.
but a
I
little
see.
bit louder.
I see. Yeah. Because you're not focusing the edge to just have an attack. You're sort of rounding it up. I see.
Yeah, I've never liked the really sharp edge on an acrylic drum. It just didn't have the body to me. It had the cut. I built an acrylic kit for a pretty prominent Canadian band, and the producer that was doing the record is Juno award-winning producer,
Sure.
and they used the acrylic kit on 2 or 3 albums. And he said, I never use acrylic, but this thing just sounds like a great wood kit. Now, could that be just because I take a little bit more time with my edges and make them super smooth and that little bit of a round over? Because he said nobody ever uses acrylic in the studio.
No, yeah.
Yeah. It's almost, sacrilegious in a way.
No. Well, I always found them interesting visually for sure, and I think I've seen maybe 1 or 2 bands play with acrylic, and I always thought they had that sort of dead 70s sound. I don't know if there was this tuning that was like that when I saw them live, but they always have that sort of visual and sound to me. For acrylic.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those materials that's. It's kind of like apples and oranges, To me, a lot of the woods are very close. You'll hear the subtleties, but to me, when you go to acrylic, it's just kind of a different beast. But again, it's got that, thuddy, as you said, like that 70s kind of vibe, or But I think it started out is kind of a visual. Thing first, and it's funny because I've got a really cool. I talked to the original acrylic manufacturers that started back in the late '60s.
Okay,
a really cool inside story about the whole, acrylic story, and it's pretty fascinating. Just to see, and again, probably a guy that like me or like any other drum builder. I'm just like, what if we take this plastic material and, make a drum out of it? Like most people would go, no, what a stupid idea. But yet somebody had to try it, and here we are,
And is it Ludwig, or is it just a drum maker that started the whole? I didn't want to go down the acrylic rabbit hole, but since you're saying it, I'm curious.
Yeah, no, it's Zico's was the original acrylic manufacturer, and then there was a whole story with Ludwig, but I won't go into that story. But it is very interesting.
Okay.
Maybe you and I could talk about that.
To the interwebs to find out what's the story. Cool. I want to keep going with this, but the other thing I find unique about, because we talked about the hybrid stuff, the popping of the cherry bomb, and all the different colors and stuff. The other thing I find interesting is that you have a trick throw off, which is not something we find all the time, but also you have snare strands that I think are 30 thick, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to why did you choose that many snares and with the trick throw off, and when do you decide this is I'm going to be the trick throw off on that one and a simple one, and what's your ideas behind that?
So the 42 strand wire came to me again just because of the era I came out of. Like again that big thick 80s snare drum. And you're going down that rabbit hole of trying to recreate that thick tone that I would hear. And I always found that 42 strand or 30 strand just gave the snare drum a little bit more lushness. Like it just, you know what I mean? It was just a little fatter. And I also have, something I talk about, just a ratio of, the chamber or the shell, how much, air is within that chamber. If it's a 5x14, not so worried about it. But as you get into 6.5 and 8, there's a lot of air. There's a lot of
It moves, yeah.
air wires off. It sounds like a tom, right? Like I've got that much air in the shell. So I always tried to offset that with the ratio of the wires I put on. So, I never really liked a 6.5 or even an 8-inch deep snare drum with just 20 strand wires.
Yes, yeah.
It was I'm hearing a lot of the drum and not so much of, the snare wires. So it was always a kind of a ratio thing to me. But, at the same time, you look at somebody like Gretsch who put on 42 strand wires on a 5x14 chrome over brass snare drum. But that recipe worked, right, with the die cast hoops. And, when it got down to 5x14s, to me, that was too much. But, the drums I tend to build, they tend to be deeper drums. So I love 30, 42.
I was going to say, because most of the drums I saw were like 6.5. There was another one, blue black acrylic, which is my favorite looking drum that you have. I think I told you that one. 14x7.
Yeah.
That you have. So, so what you're talking about, the physical, the properties of it, I can understand why now you would have, a thicker snare strand. That does make sense. Yeah. Yeah, it does make sense. Cool. You don't just make snares, you make drum kits, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I think you ship out drum kits. I think you had one that's called Natural Series Cherry Bomb drum kit that you made not too long ago. Is it a custom thing, or is it I'm going to make this kit and then sell it like the snares? How does it work for the drum kits?
Back in the day, talking 20 some odd years ago, when the boutique drum kit building was just, everybody wanted their own kit. We used to have, I used to put out a kit or two every week.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
So it required me to have all the shells on the shelves, the parts, the drum heads, so you could actually, just pull down from the shelf. You're not waiting for orders to show up. Now it's more, I just build to order. Somebody calls me up and we get to talk about, what kind of band they're playing in, the genre is, what sound they're looking for. Again, I've made it really personal over the years. I'll have these kind of conversations with the drummer and just try and, help them, because they come with a lot of ideas. It's more build to order now, just through these conversations of guys tell me what they want.
That's very cool, because I don't think you can get that a lot of places I don't think you can have that service a lot of places.
Not on the same level, when you're dealing with the larger companies. Again, I built the company to a certain level, but what I found is it started to become I just didn't have enough time to meet people on a personal level. And to me, that's what it's always been about. I know it sounds a little cliche maybe, but I really do love talking to, each drummer. And part of the creative element for me is coming up with something that they're visually really happy with and sonically, just like, oh man, I played my drum kit. I can't believe it. Thank you. Like, that's a process I love. So, it's a little bit of a longer process, but I want to put out less product. I know my dad would shoot me for saying that. I want to put out less.
It's like that's a dirty word. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. What are you talking about? I want to put out less stuff and just make it more personal. So I do love where I'm at now after 30 years of, like, I've loved the whole process, but now I've kind of found what I really love to do, and that's just tell me what you want, and we'll work it out and find a way to make your dreams come true. So. Well,
that answers another question I had, which is basically when you make a drum, when you have this idea for a drum, let's say the Cherry Bomb, is one of the requirements like, oh, okay, I'm going to build this, but I have to think, is it is there a need for it in the market? Does your business brain intervene in your creativity? Or, as I think you've just answered the question, it's like, well, I'm just going to make that and hopefully somebody likes it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, what I call like spectrums, just ideas that I have. I mean, over the years, I've done that so many times where, just like the cherry bomb. We used to have a line called the espionage line that fell under the underground drum company kind of vibe that we sold at Long McQuaid stores. And that, those were the lines. Those are things that, took a year creating the right sound. Okay, that's the drum, and let's do the marketing to get it out there. But now, I'll come out to the shop and I just have ideas and I'll just create these drums. It gets me into trouble because sometimes like that's your creation. That might not be what somebody else wants. It's a beautiful drum. Then you put the price on it because it's a one-off, and people shy away from it. So there's always that creative business thing that you just battle with. It's like I love coming out and making. I just have to. It's like people creating music.
Yeah, no, for sure.
If you're a writer or a musician, you just have to get those ideas out of your head and on the paper, and into the studio. I come out to the workshop and I create I've had all sorts of one-off drums that I've done that I'm actually just starting to sell off now because they're beautiful drums and they're near and dear to my heart, but they sit on your shelf and they're better off being into the world, going out into the world and being played, and take the funds and create the next thing,
Right. Well, one of the other things I saw that you were doing is also sort of drum shell reductions, or sort of redoing the edges. The one I, of course, caught my eyes. You were doing a Tama Superstar for somebody who does a Neil Peart, so a Rush tribute, where you basically took some Tamas and you reduced the shell and reduced the size of them. How does that work? Is that something you do often? I'm just curious.
More and more these days. Yeah. I mean, there was a whole era, of course, of super deep drums, and especially in the boutique world, there was a lot of drums built that were, 20 by 20 and 22 by 22. And, for the time they were different and they kind of worked, but a lot of people have come back to standard sizes. So they're stuck with these beautiful drum kits, but they have too much depth for their setup or for the sound that they want. For those shells specifically, it was them wanting to create Neil's specs. So
okay. Oh, I see.
Having a certain look, but they also, if you played a 15 by 12 depth, they wanted to replicate his look and his sound for when they go out to play. I always grapple with it because, again, there's in the drum community, there's a lot of purists, a lot of people that say, no, leave it as is, don't touch it, that's the way they were made, So I'm always torn reducing, a kind of a nostalgic drum like that.
Right. Especially in an 80 Tama Superstar. Yeah, I can understand. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But, in that case, it was for something specific. Where they're trying to make everything as close to what Rush did as possible, right? So, but there's a lot of requests for shell reductions. Yeah, cool. Just for setups, I think mostly is, when you've got a 13 by 11 tom or a 13 by 12 tom.
Where do you stick it?
Right? You just can't set it up without it being angled right back at you. Right?
Being that sort of metal side, Lars Ulrich kind of thing. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Right. No, I know. I have a Pearl Masters from the early 2000s, and it is that square shell stuff, and I love that kit. But those toms, I can't put them flat. They have to be, always facing at me like two faces because of a bass drums that's by 22. So, anyways.
Yeah.
So, but I, like you say, I'm thinking about it, but I'm really like, oh, I don't know if I should reduce those sounds. I think I'll maybe regret it, sort of thing.
Well, and that's the thing is, you just don't know until you've
Yeah,
done the job.
until you've done the job. Yeah.
There's nothing on paper that says that reducing it to a 12/8 or a 13/9 or whatever, it's going to sound good. It might actually just mess up with the mojo of the kit.
Of the drum. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, unless you're absolutely married to the drum, and this is my favorite drum kit, like for refinishing or any kind of alteration you're doing to the drum, make sure that like, think about it before. I've talked lots of guys out of doing things just through me not telling them not to do it, but just explain what I just said. Make sure you're absolutely married to this drum kit, because once we make this alteration or refinish it, or I would rather you keep this drum kit because it's near and dear to your heart, and it has a place in your kind of music history, and go buy another drum set that might be closer to what you're looking for.
Yeah. But it is a service that you offer, so I thought that was pretty cool. That's very nice. And lastly, you do fix up drums as well, because I think you took an old snare, old kit, and you redid the edges and that sort of thing. You fix up drums as well, yes.
Yeah. So and again, that's how I started the business. Going way back, was just messing around with drums. Gosh, I remember cutting my first bearing edge. And just going, what the hell just happened? Like, you don't have the technique down, but I would use all these, throwaway shells that maybe had a crack in it or
right to try it.
Right. Because everybody goes, did you go to school for making drums? Or no, just you get into woodworking and you find out how, router bits work and how to true up a shell and, so.
Well, I'm going to compliment you because I was watching a few videos, and you have this table that turns. And you have the drum on that table, and I can see you just manually with like just a piece of sorry, I forgot the word, sandpaper, and you're just just finding that edge. And I thought that's so cool because everything is so machined today that it's so cool to see something that's really handcrafted, basically.
Especially bearing edges. Like I'm OCD about them. Again, because it's going to be like it's the point of contact for the shell and the drum head. And if you're not doing them right, and the guys are most drummers don't know. They don't know about the how things are done. They just
no, they just hit. Yeah, exactly. They just hit stuff. Yeah,
they just want to play drums.
Yeah, basically. Right? Yeah.
That's how I always joke. That's how I've made a living. Working with drums, because most drummers, we all just want to play, right? We just want to put the drum head on it, and a lot of guys don't know how to tune. They don't know about head-to-head relationship.
For sure.
For tuning and different room and environment you're in, let alone bearing edges. So. Yeah, I'm lucky to have that machine. I had a friend who built Cobra replicas from scratch. So we built the body, the electronics, the frame, so super genius. Played drums, so he understood drums. And I said, I need a machine that keeps my sanding, especially for the apex of the bearing edge, consistent. Because when you put the shell on a table and you're sanding and then you turn the drum, there's no way of knowing, did I put more pressure in that spot and less pressure? Of course, you can check it on your granite block to make sure you don't see any light coming through the bearing edge. But I would rather have something spinning where it's very consistent, where I can actually, as you said in the video, just get the curvature and blending of the two edges the way I like it, and very consistent. Because you put the head on it, and our goal is that drum head should have a wide tuning range where it doesn't, when you tune very low, the head's not releasing off the bearing edge. That's why I put an outside round over. And it should just be easy tuning, and it should be super musical. It should like, I mean, the crazy thing I always talk about just how much sustain is in drums now is, as a drum builder, we're trying to make something that is super musical and you can just tap and it just
That's it. Yeah.
rings out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the unfortunate thing is you take it to a gig and, you know, the first thing a sound guy wants to do is, yeah, drum sounds great. Can you get rid of some of that ring?
Yeah, no, for
You
sure.
know?
I know.
So, you know, we're kind of stuck in this, you know, we're trying to make a drum that it works really well musically, but and it's just easy to tune, you know.
Yeah, I think it's our duty to fight that sound guy.
Absolutely.
Moving on
sound,
to, sorry.
I said, this is my sound.
Exactly. Hey, if Neil Young can sing and not be on tone, you know, it's his sound. Why can't we do it? So, just moving on to last things. So yeah, you have an association with a cymbal company now, I believe, and I hope, and you say, I hope to say this correctly, a Metherin cymbal. What's the association become? And
yeah, it's you know, a company that reached out to me a little while ago, just about, you know, their products, and started researching and found that they actually made all the Turkish cymbals for a big name brand cymbal company. So I thought, well, you know, it's worth trying, you know, a few of their products out. So I bought a few, shipped them over, and to me, they're like some of the most musical cymbals I've played as a drummer. And,
cool.
And again, it's why, you know, I've been playing all these years, because I love to be able to take these, you know, snare drums, drum kits, cymbals out into the field, if you will, and play them, see how they respond. So yeah, it's a company that I'm really happy to say that I'm working with, and I'm going to be. I've already sold a bunch, but mostly locally. I want to turn it into, again, you know, working on a drum room where I can put the cymbal up and hit it, play it in a groove, just so guys can get a feel for. I can talk about the weights and you know, yeah. So it's, to me, they're a really, really good cymbal. And where I was going to also go is the pricing is unbelievable. So as cymbal prices are getting out of hand.
Right.
A lot of guys, that's all I hear. I just can't afford it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find something that's really high end, really musical, but just a little bit more affordable. Still comes with a warranty, and so yeah, just trying to cover all those bases.
Cool. So if we want some, is it available online, or how do we purchase those cymbals through you? How does it work exactly?
So yeah, so I'm still setting it up. Again, now I do everything on a personal level. Like,
okay, I see.
It's almost like I'm in the store. I would just encourage people just to reach out, send me an email, send me a text, Instagram message, and I can cover any questions they might have. There are sound samples out there from the company, so I can direct them to videos that they've already got up, because I think there is about 14 different models. So there's a lot of cymbals to cover, a lot of different sounds. I'm slowly bringing them into Canada and trying to, you know, cover all the different models, so I personally get an idea of what each one does.
Okay.
So I can explain it to the drummer when they call. And so it's in its infancy right now, but did want to make that announcement that, yeah, I'm working with that company and starting to sell the product. So
very cool. Yeah, I checked out the website. This is a Turkish, company, Turkish style cymbals that are made, and yeah, there's some of them that I found really cool. That sort of mix of hammered and sort of machined that they have. That was, that was something I was attracted to for cymbals. Cool. So I'm hoping that it will work out. I'm hoping for you to work out for that. Cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
And the other thing that I'm very curious to know about is that you say you were teching for records at Metalwork Studios, which is a big studio, of course, Toronto area. And for some who don't know, studios has Rush, Metric, Triumph, Tea Party. Like so many people have passed by that studio. Talk to me about you teching. Is it for the drum setting up the drums for the studio? What were you doing exactly?
Yeah, so again, going back into growing the business, I think it all started for me when I got a call to do the Alexis on Fire record, the Crisis record, just because I was endorsing the drummer at the time. He's a friend of mine, Jordan Hastings. And the idea was he was already playing a UDRUM kit. Can't remember if he used his kit or I brought in a drum kit, but yeah, as far as the teching goes, my job was either to bring the drums in, or if the drums are already there, really just to get the best sound for the room and for the song. Through just tuning and dampening, and of course, I'll bring in 6 or 10 snare drums to give lots of different, variety. I mean, the snare drum obviously is probably the biggest. The most important snare drum, right? For the vibe in the drum kit. So yeah, it would be just maintaining a good sound throughout the session. And It might be doing, after 3 takes of a song, the heads are kind of beat, but they're still working on the song itself. And I need to go in there, tune up the drum and bring the tuning back to where it was. Mm-hmm. So there's no discrepancies.
Quickly, since you're talking about tuning, because that's another subject that's so wide open. What's your philosophy about tuning? Do you go same tension for both heads, or what is your sort of philosophy about that?
Yes, I love tuning. I love the challenge of tuning, because for me it changes all the time. Getting a drum sound, it changes with almost every room you go into. Mm-hmm. That's why I actually loved teching back in the day. But my philosophy for tuning is, number one, get the drum head in tune with itself. Get each drum, like if you're tuning a tom, for instance, getting each drum head in tune with itself. And, I can't stress enough when you're checking each point at each lug for the pitch. A lot of guys will use a drumstick or a mallet going around, to each lug point. And what you're doing is you're exciting all the overtones for the
other ones. Yeah.
You need to just isolate. And sometimes you see guys just touch the center of the drum head, which does help, but just lightly tapping at each point to get the tone at that lug point. That is so important. And I think that's where a lot of guys get frustrated with tuning drums. And on that point, you got to make sure that the head has been pulled in enough at each point to the apex of the bearing edge, which is the point of contact with the head and the shell. Right. Again, not getting too technical, but to get technical.
No, go ahead.
And I will tune up a drum, and instead of keep fine tuning, I'll actually just keep hitting the drum after I've got it to a certain point to see what it's not doing or what it's doing that maybe I don't like.
Okay.
Buzzing. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yes, I'm listening.
Buzzing, for instance, you hit the head and you hear kind of a buzz. Again, I'll go back to the guitar analogy where, if you play guitar, you press the string at the point of the fret. If you're not putting enough pressure, you get kind of a buzz, right? As soon as you bring the string into the fret, it immediately rings out. The same applies, for a visual to the drum head meeting the shell, the apex of the shell. If the drum head doesn't have enough tension on it, you're going to get buzzing. So that's one thing I'm looking for when I'm tapping around. I'll actually sometimes hit it fairly hard. If I hear kind of a papery sound, that you just need to add a little bit more tension. And if you just keep tapping it, it'll go from that papery sound to all of a sudden this kind of beautiful musical tone. That's where you've got proper tension on the whole drum head.
Okay.
After the head's in tune with itself, then it's head-to-head relationship. I will always go a semitone higher on the bottom head.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Because that creates a beautiful natural compression in the drum. And a roundness is, to me, as soon as you go take the top head tuning above the bottom head tuning, you lose all your body. You lose all the fatness. Snare drums, kick drums, toms. It's the same thing. The only thing I might change is I might put on the toms, I'll put the top head and the bottom head, at the same pitch.
Okay.
It will never go below, because as soon as you do that, you lose all the kind of fatness in the drum. But at the same time, it's totally subjective. That might be what works for the song. I don't know.
Well, that's why I was saying your philosophy and not, because it's an art form. It's not mathematical equations, but that's why I was curious to know your philosophy about tuning, because there's so many preferences over there that,
I just, again, if the head's in tune with itself and head-to-head relationship, you're going to get a good tone. And again, if you hit the drum and you're hearing buzzing, to me, it's just problem solving from that point. It's like go around and find that papery sound and tune that up. That'll alleviate that. And then some of it's like pitch bend or ring. I've got little techniques in the studio, mostly with tape loops on the bottom head for sustain. So I've done records where guys are saying, man, the toms sound amazing. Can you get rid of just a little bit of that ring? Going back to something we were talking about before, and you can use gates. To me, the gates always sounded a little unnatural.
Yeah, I'm with you with that one. Yeah,
I'll actually just try and dial back the sustain on the drum to give it more focus. I usually actually use tape loops, just duct tape, 3 or 4 inches, rip off a piece, overlap it, so that you've got a loop, and I usually start at the outer edge of the bottom side head near the rim and hit the drum and then just move it in. I find the closer you move to the center, the shorter the note becomes.
Right.
So you leave, it starts out as dong, till next Tuesday to dong, right? And if that's still too long, move it to the center. Sometimes you have to use a couple, and sometimes it's not foolproof where you just put that on there on the bottom end. It's automatically going to be a shorter tone. Sometimes, depending on the room and the environment, it actually works the other way, which I can't explain. So,
right.
A lot of the physics is I just keep messing around with it. But you have these tools, about the buzzing and the tape loops on the bottom head. You should be able to work with all those things to get the tone you want. And at the end of the day, I get the sound I want. May take a little longer than I want sometimes, but but again, tuning is totally subjective. Everybody's got a different vibe.
Yeah.
And again, we started out this whole thing talking about that, where we're chasing a new tuning, a new sound, a new whatever. At the end of the day, we're just trying to be inspired to play drums and play music, For
sure.
To encapsulate the whole thing, I'm just building drums and instruments and trying to get the best tuning, so I'm inspired to go out and play music.
Very cool. And lastly, you say you played like 140 shows because you're still a drummer at heart. So that's very cool. So do you play around like a local area? Do you play a bit outside? What's your musical situation like? I'm curious.
Yeah, now I mostly just play local. I used to drive 3-4 hours to play a job, but I've got enough work. You do anything long enough, people get to know what you do, and I've always said a drummer's like a goalie. When you're putting a pickup hockey game together, first guy you're looking for is the goalie, right?
That's true. That's so true.
So after 40 years of playing, you hope you've learned enough songs, enough of the standards to go out and fill in with different guys. And that's the fun part, is you're always on the hot seat. Hoping you do a good job. And but yeah, sometimes I'm playing 5-7 times a week, just different things. I'll play 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday,
Cool.
1 on Sunday. Through the summer, because there's festivals and events and markets. Sometimes I'll just do a duo, kick, snare, hi-hat with brushes.
Nice.
I just played a gig the other day that required 2 rehearsals, where I've got a fiddle player, an accordion player, full PA, and that takes a little more time.
All right.
So it's fun. Lots of variety.
Cool. And you get to play your drums, your own drums.
I get to play and that's the other thing is, I've always believed in if I'm going to make drums, and I want to play them, but it also, while I'm playing, it gives me the opportunity to talk to drummers still about what the kit is, and I can talk about the wood and I always try and make visually striking looking drum kits that's the first thing people are attracted to. So it opens up, breaks the ice right away. Like, oh, I love the look of your drum kit. Next thing you know, you're talking about you build them, you repair them, and I'm handing that card, right? Making my dad happy.
We do find each other, that's for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Cool. So quickly, what's the future for you for 2024? I'm curious. What's up?
We just celebrated 30 years on January 1st.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. Yeah. Hard to believe because, again, when you're in it all those years and you never really stop long enough to kind of reflect on what you're doing. And yeah, I don't know that I've got more inspiration to do what I'm doing more now than, you know what I mean? Like there's a time where you're just going along and doing it and enjoying the process. But I think for some reason I've got this new inspiration of maybe achieving 30 years. I don't know, but the one drum, if I could just show you quickly.
Of course. Go ahead.
So I've been going back to that whole 80s snare drum thing. This is a drum I've been chasing for 20 years.
Nice. So
this is a 3mm cast bell bronze.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. There's this whole fervor for bell stuff lately. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Which is funny because I've been trying to find, and again I hire a guy to do it. Finding guys that can pour the liquid bell bronze into the mold and take it out of the cast and lay it down the size and edges and all that sort of thing. It's taking me this long to find something that I'm happy with, but I am so excited about this drum because the drum that really inspired me was the snare drum, that holy grail that Ross, the drum doctor, has down in LA. That's been on Nevermind and all these countless other 90s, right? That everybody talks about.
The one you probably open, like angels sing out and go, because everybody's so, exactly. Yeah.
So I just did a kind of a preliminary test on it with the drummer from Silverstein.
Cool.
And we're going in the studio, B-Town Studio here in Burlington, February 1st, just to have him demo it. And I'm going to do a video and, just so I can kind of bring it to the world. But it does have this weight, it's about, your 25-pound, but it has that backbeat, that sound that I've been chasing came close with the Cherry Bomb, and it has its thing. But I've never been more excited about a snare drum than I have been for this one.
Awesome.
So, and actually, you can also get it with the bell bronze hoops. Can you see that?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. They're super expensive. The drum's super expensive.
They're gorgeous, though. Very beautiful.
Yeah. Put a little patina on it. Came in just regular bronze colored, but again, that's part of the creative part where you get to kind of mess with the finish of it.
Cool. I look forward to hearing that one for sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, I wish you all the best with that demo. We're probably I know there's a fervor for Bell stuff lately, so I think that should be a popular one. Hopefully, it'll be a popular one for you.
Yeah.
And quickly, if people want to reach out, they want the custom drum, they want to fix drums, how do they reach you? What's the information to reach you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the business line is just 905-333-3786, which is just 333 drum.
Cool.
On Instagram at UDRUM Co, UDRUM Co. Facebook under UDRUM, or email is just UDRUM67, UDRUM67 at gmail.com.
Very cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Paul. It was really a fascinating, talk about, the stuff that we hit and we don't know that much about the construction for most of us. So thank you so much. Very cool.
Well, thank you. And thank you for doing this. This is great for the drum community.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I wish you all the best 2024. And, hopefully one day I'll be able to, to check out some of your drums.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you so much, guys, for being with us tonight. Thank you, Paul, for coming on. And thank you to everyone out there. Hopefully you had a good episode. Come back next week for another episode of Drumfills Cafe. Until then, all the best. And, see you next week. Ciao.